Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope you're enjoying this week of Passover, of unleavened bread. If you're going through a hard time, or you're alone, or you're feeling isolated, or in some obscure corner of the world, don't worry. Don't be in distress. This is meant to happen. You're meant to be where you're meant to be. And particularly at this time of unleavened bread, Yahusha is cleansing out just a little bit more of that leaven that's in his bride. Remember, leaven is a behavior. That's all there is to it. Leaven is a behavior. Puffed up, angry, idolatrous, wicked, disobedient behaviors, that pollute us. So you're just cleansing them out of his bride, false teachings as well, cleansing them out of his bride. We've got lots of things to talk about here today. I'm not even going to get a chance to get to the behavior evolution scriptures. There's been lots of articles coming up and they've been phenomenal. They're going hand in hand with what Yahusha's been saying the last few days. And so I'm down here again in the little green room because I want to get this out while it's fresh. A couple of these articles are only from last night and this morning, so they're hot off the press. Because when Yahusha tells you to do something, he puts something out there, you've got to get it out there while it's fresh. Bread. You don't want to eat stale bread. Fresh bread, fresh bread. Full of lots of yummy leaven. Yeah, in the natural. Leaven in the natural, not less than leaven, no. Not spiritual leaven, that's got to be purged out of the bride right now this time, okay? Ooh. So before we go into anything, I just want to bring your attention to this comment I received last night because it really lifted my spirits because it shows me that Yahusha is reaching people and waking people up and talking to people and what's happening to some people on the other side of the world. In the four corners of the world is happening to me and happening to you. It's happening to everybody away from the leaven, away from the religious institutions. Just you and him, me and him. So when you hear people going through the same thing and they mention it, that they've thought these things and they've been feeling these things, and then that person puts it into words and this person puts it into words and I've been ranting about it and other people are saying things about it, it just brings it all together and goes, Yahusha is connecting through the internet. Yahusha can connect his bride and we can encourage one another, So this was from Heather, who said, I've been following you on YouTube for around a year or two now. Yahusha put you smack dab on my YouTube. You are refreshing and real. I was asking him for direction because he called me out of the Christian church almost 4 years ago. I've come out in degrees, almost fell into religious spirit again with the Nazarene movement. Almost fell into religious spirit again with the Nazarene movement. Got to be careful of those Nazarene. But he drew me closer. I'm so grateful you do these teachings. I'm in the USA and there aren't many who believe that aren't Nazarene and under a religious spirit. None. I have family in Melbourne and Sydney, but I've never been there though. My grandmother came to the USA in 1945 from there. Anyway, I'm quite happy to find you on here. I have a lot of questions. When Yahusha says those who endure to the end, does that mean in their belief or stay alive kind of endure through the distress, or both? Also, I have to tell you, my young daughter was immersed today. Isn't this amazing? My young daughter was immersed today because she understands the scriptures through you. She has ID and is 14, so be encouraged to keep going, brother. Blessings to you and your family. Stay the course. This is reaching who it says. This is reaching who it needs to reach. Love you in Yahusha. Happy Good Friday to you all. ID is intellectual disability. So daughter's got intellectual disability and is 14. I call her differently differently abled. Differently abled. If she can understand and know the Ruach through your simplicity of words, then it is truly anointed. Isn't this encouraging, guys? We cried tears of joy today. So thank you for being a faithful servant and thank you to your family. All esteem to Yahusha HaMashiach. All esteem to Yahusha HaMashiach. Isn't that amazing? Yahusha is moving in his bride. So he knows who his bride is. I didn't go out and find people. I'm just doing what I've been told to do. You do what you've been told to do and let Yahusha gather the bride, yeah? I said, how wonderful, Heather. The angels are rejoicing and celebrating with you. Keep going, sister. It's so encouraging to hear of your journey out. It is indeed personal between you and Yahusha, and he will be your guiding light through every storm. Enduring till the end means the end of your life. If you have overcome the world and the evil that seeks to control and use your body to the best of your ability, knowledge and belief, and you die before Yahusha returns, then you'll be raised up on the day of the trumpet shouts. We're on to However, if you are still alive and running your race when Yahushua returns, then you will be transformed to meet Mashiach in the sky as the fire and reapers ravage this planet, cleansing it of all its depravity and wickedness. Oh, how we look forward to that day. Yahushua has chosen his bride, and we just need to keep overcoming and staying awake and conscious to his daily movements and how he wants to use us. Thanks for the wonderful encouragement. It means a lot. Keep fighting, sister, because you're the only one who can. Keep fighting, guys. Keep coming forward. This is just one of many of the comments that come through YouTube or Facebook. I know I've been shining a light on a lot of the freaky ones the last few days, but there are really encouraging ones as well. And Yahushua's talking to his bride. This is the week of unleavened bread. He doesn't like a lot of the behaviors that are going on in his bride. And that's what we're going to go into today. So, what does seeing mean in Hebrew? They have eyes, but they cannot see. I mean, you've seen me the last few videos pulling my hair out, like people just cannot see. They all want to go out there and have a religious go out and convert the world. They can't see themselves. How do you make people see? You can't. They have ears, but they cannot hear. They have eyes, but they cannot see. Scripture says that. So Yahushua understands, doesn't he? Welcome to his world. What does seeing mean in Hebrew? Pikich, from clear-sighted, figuratively intelligent. Intelligent seeing. Wise. Right? Seeing. Experiencing. Interesting. Experiencing. Not just seeing or hearing, but experiencing. Very similar to the Hebrew idea of belief. Experiencing. Being obedient and doing something about it, not just thinking it. Not just natural eyes, natural ears, experiencing something. And we read that scripture in Ezekiel. And the word of Yahuwah came to me saying, Son of man, you are dwelling in the midst of a rebellious house. They have eyes to see, but they have not seen. Ears to hear, but they have not heard. For they are a rebellious house. Rebellious house. History tells us in Ezekiel 8-12 why and how the presence of Yahuwah left the temple in Jerusalem. And then he destroyed it and closed the portal. Men and women were mixing the Torah with the Mazaroth zodiac, which is a calendar event system from the nations around them that brings violence to your nations. That's why he divorced them. Because his people, and we've been learning all about his people and the origins of their lineage and where they came from out of Egypt, and he gave them his instructions and everything. Now they've gone into mixing the Torah, the instruction, the everlasting instruction, mixing it with the Mazaroth, zodiac, the stars and the sun and the moon and sun worship and pagan idolatry, which is a calendar event system today from the nations around them that brings violence to your nations. The temple was rebuilt for the coming of Messiah, who pointed out to the Jews the hypocrisy of their worship and the futility of their traditions. Here was Yahuwah standing in the flesh right before them, doing amazing things, and they could not see him. Could not see him. Any different today? Can't see him, can't see the way. They could not see how impossible it was for any man to do or say the things he did. Whilst on earth, Yahushua opened again a portal between Shamayim and earth, and the door will literally be shut when he receives his new bride, Yisrael. Parts of the divorced bride were still in the land. A wife could not remarry unless her husband was dead. The Jews killed Yahushua so they could reign on this earth. Yahushua rose from the dead with a new body, setting himself free to have a new wife. Those who wanted to enter the portal as the new Jerusalem and be his bride are encouraged and welcome. Today the Jews are encouraging the world to celebrate the Feast of Israel combined with the zodiac system. So much zodiac, looking at the stars and sun worship, all this stuff coming into the true way from all avenues. Today the Jews are encouraging the world to celebrate the Feast of Israel combined with the zodiac system. The Jews celebrate the shadows of the meanings of the feasts, with their own rules and traditions, which is why they were originally cast out of the land, rather than worshipping the fulfillment of the shadows, which is Yahushua himself. Talk about seeing. When we have the fullness of understanding, why on earth would we flatten or deaden our celebration with a bit of matzah, herbs, bread and wine. Talk about seeing. Why, when we have the fullness of understanding? We do have the fullness of understanding. Yahushua's revealed everything in these latter days. Revealed everything. We have all 66 books. We have all the shadows laid out for us, and the fulfillments are popping up all the time through all different people. If you've got eyes to see and ears to hear, you know. Why on earth would we flatten, deaden our celebration with a bit of matzah, herbs, bread and wine? True, the shadows point to the fulfillment, but why would you let your adoration be interfered with by scraps and morsels, using them to be your center rather than Yahushua himself? Can you see what the Ruach is teaching us? Can you see what we should worship? Can you see what we should worship? Is it the mixture of objects and traditions of shadows, or Yahushua himself? Can you see what the Master is showing us? Right from the very beginning, he has hated our worship to be mixed with idolatry, with objects, idols, things of stone and wood and clay and gold and silver, shadows. Right from the beginning, he has hated our worship to be mixed with object forms. Can you see this? Can you see this message? Because if you can see it, like I said last episode, it's a miracle. It means he's waking you up. You heard what Heather said at the beginning. She nearly got caught up in the Nazarene religion as well. It's so easy to think, oh, they've come out a little bit further. This is the truth. You've got to keep coming out. Keep coming out. And if you've got to walk through certain movements to come out, walk through them, but keep walking. Keep walking. Those who put their stake in the ground and put a big banner up and names and places and t-shirts and you name it, keep walking, you know. They get given a piece of truth, a piece, a massive piece, a little piece, any piece of the restoration puzzle, and they think that's it. Yahushua keeps going, keeps restoring, you know. So keep moving. So we've talked about the Jews being divorced. Yisrael being divorced, I should say, because the Jews are technically only the tribe of Yehuda. But still, Yisrael was divorced. And now they're teaching everybody today to mix everything together. Which brings us to the doctrine of the older brother. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This was amazing. This is only a few hours old, guys. The older brother doctrine, you're getting it hot out of the oven. The yummy fresh bread. The older brother doctrine. What does Nazarene mean? Went into this word a few episodes ago when we were dealing with the Nazarite vow. Nazar and the Nazir and the Nazir. What does Nazarene mean? The synonym, word spelt the same, forms a play on words. Netzar meaning branch and Natsar meaning to watch. This is why the believers of Yahushua were called the true branches people and watchmen. They are considered the guardians of the word. His name and his word. Guardians, watchmen, branches. By scriptural definition, that's what any follower of Yahushua should be coming into. Whether you want to go around heralding that as a label, that's up to you, but that's technically, by definition, what a follower of Yahushua was called back then. Branch, a watchman. Talking to one of the top leaders of the Nazarene movement, the subject of the Jews was mentioned in regard to them being the chosen ones. We were given the parable of the prodigal son and was told that the older brother in this parable are the Jews today. He said they are to be referred to as the older brother who have always been with the Father, and we should respect them as they have so much to teach us. This should be our attitude towards the Jews, I was told. Understand that? Parable of the older brother. We're going to read that now so you can understand it. In Luke 15, Yahushua said, a certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me a portion of goods falling to me. Give me my inheritance, in other words. And he divided his wealth between them. And not many days after, the son Not many days after, the younger son, having gathered all together, went away to a distant country and there wasted his goods with loose living. And when he had spent all, there arose a severe scarcity of food throughout the land, and he began to be in need. And when he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to his field to feed the pigs. And he was longing to fill his stomach with the pods which the pigs were eating, and no one gave to him. But having come to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I am perishing with hunger? Having risen, I shall go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." And having risen, he went to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf here and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this son of mine was dead and is alive again, and he was lost and is found." And they began to rejoice. And his older son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And having called one of the servants, he asked what this meant. And he said to him, "Your brother has come, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he received him back in health." And he, the older son, was angry and would not go in. So his father came out and pleaded with him. And answering, he said to his father, See these many years I have been serving you, and have never transgressed a command of yours. But to me you have never given a young goat, so I could rejoice with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has squandered your wealth with whores, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him." Then he said to him, the father said, "Son, you are always with me, and all I have is yours. And we had to rejoice and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive, and was lost and is found." So interesting, the son says, "See, these many years I have been serving you, and I have never transgressed a command of yours. But to me you have never given the fattened goat." Interesting. Just remember that. The older brother has never transgressed any commands in the parable. When you see the advice we were given, what was the advice we were given? The advice we were given was, the older brother in this parable are the Jews today, the Yahudim. They are to be referred to as the older brother, who have always been with the Father, and we are to respect them as they have so much to teach us. This should be our attitude towards the Jews, we were told. Interesting. When you see the advice we were given, we don't agree with the Jews, Yahudim, as being the older brother. At the time of Yahushua's appearance in Jerusalem, there were segments of a few tribes. Others were of political, man-made religious factions, and mixtures of the nations. Get this political climate? There were some segments of a few tribes. Others were political, man-made religious factions, most of them, and a mixture of the nations. They had a form of priesthood, but no presence of Yahuwah. What is the point of a priesthood if there is no presence of Yahuwah? It's a sham. No presence of Yahuwah in the temple, guiding them, which made their belief dead and dry. Yahushua was not in their temple. He was wandering around outside. Their belief was dead and dry. And today the Jews' belief system has spread to all nations. Today the Jewish belief system has spread to all nations. Understand this? How could they be the older brother? The older brother was obedient, stayed with his father, kept working alongside the father, faithfully, obediently. Anyway, we'll come to that. We have a question. My heart started pounding when I read these. This was amazing. Because it's another way of, it's just another person verbalizing what I've been so frustrated about. Have the Nazarene movement, the true followers of Yahushua, been deceived and infiltrated with Jewish traditions and customs of the shadow teaching system? Have the Nazarene movement, the true followers of Yahushua, been deceived and infiltrated with Jewish traditions and customs of the shadow teaching system? Have the Nazari been hypnotized by the big brother Jews today in their worship of the feasts of Israel? Have the Nazarene lost their true identity and emancipation, freedom and liberty by behaving the shadow feasts of Judaism, Yahudaism? Have they taken on the mantle and dress code plus Jewish traditions, coming under a yoke of bondage in worship? Have they? Have they been stopped at the shadows and missed the fulfillment and meaning of their worship, which is Yahushua himself? The Orthodox Yahudaism Jewish movement, older brother as they say, is all those things. Completely deceived, a mixture swill, just as the Christians are a mixture swill of truth and lies, so is the older brother. I've got to train myself to stop saying the older brother, because they're not the older brother. They are not the older brother. The older brother was obedient. That's why he was frustrated. These guys weren't obedient. Just because they held on to the covenant, held on to some of the... I mean, they didn't even hold on to the original Paleo-Hebrew. They mixed mash, Babylonian Hebrew, you know, all these different customs and cultures and wacky beards and hats and boxes and zits and you name it, all this rubbish they've carried on, which is way more important than the initial blood covenant of deliverance and the instructions. That they've polluted it, completely dropped the ball, completely. Oh yeah, we're all happy to say that Christianity is full of paganism and the spawn of Constantine. Look at the bloody Jewish system. It's exactly the same, just in a slightly different way. It's a different dress code. It's exactly the same. It's religious BS, and it's been infiltrated into every movement. The Messianics have been infiltrated, and the Nazarene have been infiltrated too. How do you know if a movement's been infiltrated? Open your eyes and see. Because you can see a behavior. You can't read minds. You can't know what's happening in a person's heart, but you can see freaky behavior. Freaky, whackhead behavior. Have the Nazarene movement, true followers of Yahushua, been deceived and infiltrated with Jewish traditions and customs of the shadow teaching system? Hell yes! Have the true Nazari been hypnotized by the big brother Jews today in their worship of the feast of Yisrael? You betcha bippy. Have the Nazarene lost their true identity and emancipation, freedom, liberty by behaving the shadow feasts of Judaism? Yes. Have they taken on the mantle and dress code of Jewish traditions, coming under a yoke of bondage in worship? You bet they have. Absolutely. Have they been stopped at the shadows and missed the fulfillment and meaning of their worship, which is Yahushua themselves? They've missed Yahushua himself. He's walking past their gathering, knocking on the door, like I said last episode. They're too busy doing what they want to do. Too busy cracking cardboard crackers, too busy drinking wine and washing feet, you know. Too busy with themselves. That was the whole purpose of leaven. It's the whole purpose of fasting on the Day of Atonement. The fast is from the world and the lusts of the flesh. The fast is the leaven. The leaven and the fast go hand in hand. It is a revelation, a fulfillment of shadows. How many times do we need to say this? They've lost the plot. The Messianics and Nazarene have come into this swill. They've been infiltrated. Have the Jews infiltrated the Nazarene fortress as the older brother, seducing them to a mixture of beliefs, rendering them too as a religious faction? Yes, this is Shaitan himself. We see many Nazarene groups today worshipping as Christians do and dressing in Jewish religious garb, acting out dead shadow worship. You got your own eyes to see. You can see it. Why have you been feeling this niggling feeling? This itching about this situation, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Because if you were to actually make up your mind and declare it, or it might be judging, or it might be we couldn't possibly think that about someone else. Well, face it. Face the truth. You don't have to judge, but face the truth. Discern the truth. We see many Nazarene groups today worshipping as Christians do, not taking anything away from the word Nazarene. The Nazarene is Yahushua's word, not ours. Branches, watchmen, guardians of his word and his name, that's cool. But we see many groups today worshipping as Christians do. Dressing in Jewish religious garb, acting out dead shadow worship. The Jews and the Nazarene have only come so far as the shadows, with the mixture of worship which has rendered them asleep. Remember the 10 virgins all gathered together and fell asleep. This is the bride. The bride, half is wise, half is foolish, half are sheep, half are goats, half are wheat, half are tares sown in among us, breathing poisonous spores on us. Those that had oil in their lamps arose and went in to meet the bridegroom. You have to know Yahushua personally to be a part of his bride. That was part of the word higher up there, experience. Being awake is to be experiencing. Having eyes to see, ears to hear, experiencing. Not just reading and memorizing, but experiencing Yahushua in your day. Even if it means going off your face, falling on your face, making mistakes, even falling into disobedience at times. We're all fleshly beings that do that, but picking yourself back up and dusting yourself back off, start all over again and keep going with the Master, experiencing him, a real living, breathing thing. Which brings us to the seething lies. Seething. I've been using this word seething a bit lately because it really is. It's a hissing, seething. Nafak, all right? That's what they're doing. Nafakas, that's what they are. A primitive root to puff. Puff. Sounds a bit like leaven, doesn't it? Puff in various applications, literally to inflate. Blow hard, that's what they are, bloody blowhards. Scatter, kindle, expire, figuratively, to disesteem. Blow, breathe, give up, cause to lose life, seething, snuff. Snuff, yeah, snuffing. That's the Hebrew word of seething. Didn't know that. Used the word all the time, didn't even know what it meant. Stupid Mark. Seething in the English means a boiling or foaming as if boiling. Crowded and full of restless activity, in a state of extreme agitation, especially through anger. That was good, wasn't it? So particularly in this week of unleavened bread, leaven puffs up. Leaven is up itself. Puff up, inflate, blow hard. Been talking to a lot of blowhards this week. Seething anger is what you will receive from the Jews if you talk about the Messiah, or even JC, because they don't accept the New Testament. Jews won't even receive the New Testament, most of them. We're generalizing here, but go with the flow. Seething anger is also what you will receive from Christians too if you mention Yahuwah or Yahusha, because they don't accept the Old Testament. Because we have to separate the scriptures, don't we? Who told us to do that? I don't know. We can see by these statements that major religions are a seething cauldron of pain and suffering. Religion is a seething cauldron of pain and suffering. Remember that religion is a behaviour. So if you're watching behaviours that you see in other places, I might incorporate that into my movement. Yahushua said, the book is written of me, meaning the whole scripture is written about him. He is the living word made flesh. All of it is his word. It's him. We can see by these statements above that the Jews follow the Old Testament, which is full of prophecy and shadows to be fulfilled, while the Christians mainly focus on the New Testament and reject Jewish beliefs, adding more seething, adding more puff-uppery, blowhardery. Through doing this, you become a blowhard. You want to be a blowhard? Blowhard behaviour. The Nazarene who follow the complete scriptures, understanding that Yahushua himself is the ultimate fulfillment of all prophecy, have been stopped and seduced under the yoke of the big brother doctrine, the prodigal son, coming from the Jews. The Nazrim who follow the complete scriptures, not dividing it up into old and new and believing one or the other, all of it. Even the Nazrim who believe that have been seduced and stopped under the yoke of the big brother doctrine coming from the Jews. This doctrine of seething lies has blinded the Nazrim and led them back into the shadows of Jewish traditions, with beards, long curls, hats, long gowns, zeets, and many unnecessary tradition. This mixture of seething belief is stopping their journey of life to find the portal of access to the Father. This mixture of seething belief, seething, puffed up, blowhard beliefs, is stopping their journey of life to find the portal of access to the Father. Yahushua said, watch out for the leaven of the Pharisees. These stand in the doorway trying to stop portal entrance. As you can see, the seething pot is what man-made religion produces. Yahushua has no religion in him, hence the call to come out of her, my people. Those who have ears to hear the calling of the bride can respond personally to Yahushua, which is what he desires. Those who have ears to hear the calling of the bride can respond personally to Yahushua, which is what he desires. That is our true worship. It's not about focusing on traditions. It is adoration of the Master, Yahushua himself. These major religions have not moved on and are drowning and seething in their own religious madness. They have gone as far as they can go because of man-made knowledge, religion. And that's all they have. They saunter around like kings, don't they? That's the behaviour we're seeing. The Jews are ignoring the government's rule of coronavirus and are celebrating Passover, coming together and celebrating Passover, even though everybody's been told to stay away and self-isolate and quarantine. But they don't care. They're above all that. That's a holy plague upon the earth, they say. Oh, we don't have to worry about that. I'm not worried about it either. I'm still doing what the government says. I don't want to be fined. You know, I'm not above it all. They are asleep to the plague of punishment. What are they doing? The Jews are ignoring the government rules of coronavirus and celebrating Passover, which can be the cause of many deaths. They are asleep to the plague of punishment upon them. They're declaring, all the religious people are out there declaring what this virus is and declaring this and declaring that. But they're still dead and blind to the fact that this plague of punishment is upon them. They lift up their own religious shadowy traditions above the emergency of corona, and will not be protected, but will boil seething in the pot of affliction. We need to move out of shadow traditions and accept the way of the Master, because he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. No man comes to the Creator of the universe. No man is connected to the interdimensional portal. No man has access to the throne room of Yahushua himself, but through Mashiach, through the deliverer, Yahushua HaMashiach. No one comes to him but through Yahushua. No one can have that experience but by Yahushua. He is our deliverer, Yahushua Messiah. So here's a couple more questions. If the Jews are not the older brother of the parable of the prodigal son, then who is? Who is the group of people that have been walking obedient to the Father since the beginning? Where is the tribe? Where is the group? Where is the sect who have been following the Father, the Creator, Yahushua himself? Where are they? Where is the obedient? If it's not the Jews, if it's not the Yahudim, who is the older brother? There isn't one. That's not the way to interpret that parable. It's not about tribes. Because none of them, all 12 tribes, were scattered. None of them were obedient. And when they come back to Father's house, we'll be at the end, because we're all scattered. The older brothers, we've been told, looking at the Jewish people, they're not back. They're not walking with the Father. Just because they've held on to some of the older ancient scrolls and all this stuff, they don't obey it. But why are we lifting them up, taking any of their advice? Just because they've held on to some of the appointed times and the right way to follow the calendar, so what? Look what they do on those events. Look what they do. It's absolute rubbish and polluted, filth, lies, seething blowhardery, So if the Jews are not the older brother of the parable, then who is? There isn't one. No one has been obedient. No one has kept the commandments. No one has been obedient and stayed true and faithful to Yahushua. Who are the obedient tribes working alongside the Father? There are none. Is this parable even about the sons or about the Father? I get teary a lot of the time when I read this parable, but it doesn't happen until I read about the Father's love. This parable is all about the Father's love, the Father waiting. You can imagine it. Those of us who have children, who have gone out into the world, or even if they hadn't, we can imagine it. Every day, whenever you walk past the window or walk across the veranda, you're looking at the horizon, looking out. Particularly in this day and age where you could see a lot more on the horizon, looking out, watching, waiting for your child to come home. Can you understand the heart of the Father? Even while the son was just a long way off, his father went running to him. The older brother couldn't understand. Sibling rivalry, we can understand that. We're all siblings and we've all got children, so those of us who have children, we can understand sibling rivalry. It's got nothing to do. Who told us to assign tribes to these sons? Who told us to do that? The older brother probably did. The older brother would have us believe that because they want to be respected. Don't you forget to respect us because we're the older brother. We've been here longer than you. Yeah, and look what you've done to it. Where have you been? You're not anywhere. You've been divorced just like the 10 northern tribes were. The two southern tribes were divorced just like the 10, all the tribes were scattered. All the tribes were disobedient. None of them have come back. When Yahushua walked the earth, he was dealing with their insanity. And there were only a few religious sects and, man-made traditions and factions that were set up. And he was constantly telling them off because of their religious behavior. He's always telling off religious behavior. That's why I've been dealing with religious behavior for a long time now. I'm fed up with it. I don't want it. Do you want it? Can you see that this older brother doctrine is coming amongst us? Us Nazarene? Yes, I'm a Nazarene too, a Natsari. I'm not associated with them because they're all under this madness. Lifting up shadows and dressing like weirdos, sticking stuff on the sides of their cars and on their bodies and, doing all this religious madness, trying to bring on some fake harvest. Yahushua's in control of the harvest, and the harvest comes from his instructions through obedient vessels who behave a certain way, not behaving the shadows, not behaving in the buffoonery, puffed up blowhards. Are you a puffed up blowhard? Hope you enjoyed all this today, guys. Many of you are probably seething with hatred about it. Good. You need to be woken up to your insanity. The Nazarene movement is full of rubbish and seething hatred and puffed up buffoonery. And I'm happy to tell you about it. This is fresh, guys. Fresh. Yahushua does not want leaven in his bride. He hates leaven, and leaven is a behavior. Leaven is a behavior. So if you are just into the natural bread, natural wine, natural leaven, foot washing and zeets and hats and all this BS, I'm sorry, you've been stopped. And the Jews have infiltrated. The religious Yahudimism, The Yahudim are just named after the tribe of Yehuda, another tribe of Israel that was divorced and scattered. The presence is not there. The presence is now individually scattered across the world, popping up amongst his immersed, believing bride. Are you part of that movement? Come into that, guys, and be strengthened. You don't have to come under any of those yokes of bondage. It's madness. Take a look at it. Take a look at it. And don't feel guilty for facing the truth. It's not judging someone to face the truth about what you see out of your eye holes. Face it and don't be like it. Run to Yahusha and away from the religious madness of the older brother that has infiltrated the Nazarene movement. Yes, it has. See you.